Listeners, I welcome you all in our today's offline video lecture of class 12 information practices, and the topic is introduction of SQL. So students, we will start with today's topic of SQL. SQL is a language to operate databases. So in SQL we operate databases. It includes database creation, database deletion, fetching rows, modifying rows, etc. Through through SQL we can create database, we can delete a database, we can fetch rows, we can modify rows. All the operation in a database can be done through SQL language. SQL is pronounced as ESQL. SQL is an ANSI, that is American National Standard Institute standard language, but there are many different versions of the SQL language. It is a standard set by the American National Standards Institute, but there has been different versions of the SQL language in many years. So what is SQL? SQL is structured query language, which is a computer language for storing, manipulating and retrieving data stored in a relational database. SQL, so students, SQL stands for structured query language. It's a computer language for storing, manipulating and retrieving data stored in a relational database. So we can store database, we can manipulate database, we can retrieve data stored in a relational database. SQL is a standard relation for database management system. It is a standard language for relational database system. All the relational database management systems like MySQL, MSSS, Oracle, Sbase, Informix, Postgres and SQL Server use SQL as their standard database. There are many softwares like MySQL, MSSS by Microsoft, Oracle, Sbase, Informix, Postgres and SQL Server. All these software use SQL as their standard database language. Also, they are using different dialects such as MS SQL Server using TSQL, Oracle using PLSQL, MSS's version of SQL is called JetSQL. What can SQL do? What is a function of SQL? SQL can execute queries against a database. So we can execute queries against our storage database. SQL can retrieve data from a database. We can retrieve our data from the database. SQL can insert records in a database. Through SQL we can insert records in a database. Through SQL we can update records in a database. SQL can delete records from a database. SQL can create new databases. SQL can create new tables in a database. SQL can create stored procedures in a database. SQL can create views in a database. SQL can set permissions on tables, procedures and views. So SQL can create a database, can manipulate a database, can edit a database, can update a database, can set permissions for on tables, procedures and views. So SQL is a language for creating, updating, deleting and manipulation of data in a database. So a brief history of SQL. Now we will give a brief history of SQL. In 1970, Dr. Edgar F. Ted Code of IBM, which is known as EF code of IBM, is known as father of relational databases. He described a relational model for databases. So the father Dr. EF Ted Code, Edgar F. Ted Code, a British computer scientist, is known as father of relational databases. He described a relational model for databases. In 1974, first structured query language appeared. In 1978, IBM worked to develop codes ideas and released a product called named System R. In 1986, IBM developed the first prototype of relational databases and standard by ANSI, American National Standard Institute. The first relational database was released by relational software which later came to be known as Oracle. So the first relational database which existed on SQL standard was relational software which later came to be known as the Oracle. So students, this was it from the today's topic of SQL. In short, SQL is a programming language standard which is used to create, modify, manipulate, as well do anything in our database. It is a back-end language. It can store our databases. It manipulates our databases. So it is a back-end language in our programming structure which helps us to deal with database. So students, this is it for today's topic. In the next topic, we will deal with different commands of SQL. How can we create a database? How can we manipulate a database? It comes with a series of commands, namely data definition language, data manipulation language. All these commands which we will learn in our next topic. Students, thank you. Stay at home, stay healthy, stay safe. Thank you.